So this is the LMC Ag tiller, 7 foot. I did do a little more research on it. Hadn't hooked it up to the tractor and checked it out yet, but it's a RT-7 from LMC Ag. This is a brand of equipment that our local John Deere dealer has started carrying. They didn't used to offer this, they just started. And this stuff is made in Georgia. So, like I said, I've looked it up and read a little bit about the company. I know they make pecan harvest equipment. Down in Georgia, they're down in pecan country. They make a lot of pecan equipment. But they make a lot of everything. I think I'm gonna like it. I believe, you know, it looks like good stuff. And this is the RT. Looking up their website, you can go to their website, lmcag.com, if you want to check out some of their stuff. They offer a little bit of everything. And they offered a Sportsman series line of equipment that really interests me. I noticed they had 2-row corn planters, and they had cultipackers, and they had the Sportsman series. You know, that would be food plot equipment. Looking at the specs on this tiller, 6 blades per flange, heavy duty slip clutch, adjustable park stand. That thing's pretty cool. It's made good. I like the way they, you know, it's going to be easy to use that park stand and take it on and off and adjust it, that type of stuff. It's made good. I don't know if y'all can see that. This camera got a pretty wide angle. I gotta get pretty close to stuff. It's got those adjustable skid plates that, you know, they are replaceable. Skid shoes, they call them. Adjustable tailgate. Every one of them I ever had had the adjustable tailgate. And it's gear driven. It is gear driven. So I wouldn't have one. I wouldn't buy a tiller that's chain driven. You know. Yeah, it says it right here. Gear drive. That's one of the things I was looking for. Looking on their website here, they got, looks like they got 4 different series of this tiller. And this is the RT series. Like I said, you can see here, RT-7. So they've got a RT series. They've got a TC series. That's like their economy series. TC. So TC series, RT series, RXT series, and CXT series. And as they go up in series, the 4 different series of this tiller, the TC series looks like the economy model. It's chain driven. It's chain driven, and as they go up from that, RT series is the next one, which is what this is, and it's gear driven. And then up from that, you go to an RXT series. It's also gear driven. And really the only difference I see as they go up in series is the gearbox. The RXT series looks like it's got a 120 horsepower gearbox. So that's really only the difference I see as they go up in series, is they're putting bigger gearboxes on them. 120 horsepower gearbox, recommended 50 to 90 horsepower recommended. That's on the RXT. Let's see, the RT, which is what this is recommended on a 7-foot 45 to 60 horsepower. So that's probably, this is probably a 40 horse gearbox. I think, you know, that's usually pretty standard on equipment about this size, which is it's going to be your standard duty gearbox, or usually around 40 horse is recommended. You know, they'll handle more than that. That's just, I guess that's kind of a recommended minimum, I guess you'd say. So 40 right here says 45 minimum, 60 maximum. We're going to be right at the maximum horsepower recommendation with the 5075. I believe the 5075E is 60 PTO horsepower, 60 or 65, 60 I think. So, and that's the RT series of these tillers. So like I said, as you go up from RT series, really it's just a heavier duty gearbox, RXT and CXT. CXT is their top of the line, or it's the way they have it listed. It's just the most heavy duty. Still got 6 blades per flange. Even on their most heavy duty tiller, still got six blades per flange. Still got the slip clutch. Recommended 60 to 100 horsepower. Still got the adjustable skid shoes, replaceable skid shoes. Still got an adjustable tailgate. Everything's the same. Everything is the same except for the gearboxes. So if you need a heavier duty gearbox, they do offer that. This is going to be fine for what I do. Just the standard duty gearbox, as long as it's gear driven. As long as you got gears, in here. As long as they're, what happens is if they're chain driven, that chain will get loose in there and you won't really know it. And it'll flop around and slap around and could break. You know, eventually it's going to break. And you have to adjust it. So that adds to your, just the maintenance of the unit, you know, and just something else you got to do. And that chain could get loose and it could wear a hole in this cover, and then you got to replace the cover. And then if you're in the middle of a job, you know, you may lose your oil, and it's probably not going to lock up on you. Odds are it's probably going to break the chain. It's probably what's going to happen. But then you got a lot more parts you got to replace. Not only do you have to replace the chain, you have to replace the gears if they're worn, and you'll have to replace that cover if it's got wear on it. So with the gear driven tiller, you don't have to worry about that as much. So long as they're gear driven, like I said, six blades per flange. Kind of hard to see down in there, but we'll get this thing on the tractor after a while, and then next video we're gonna use it. Hopefully the weather holds up this weekend, and hopefully we have good weather, and we're gonna go till about 1 acre, almost maybe a half an acre. Okay, so we're getting ready to put the tiller on the tractor. I was getting ready to hook it up here, and I noticed something. I got a bolt in the way there, hooking my third arm up. So, with a little spacer on it. Ain't that nice? Ain't that neat? So I'm thinking the way they done this 3-point hitch on here, I'm thinking you can use quick attach setup with it. What it looks like to me. Because these down here, you know, the way, you know, I don't have quick attach. I just got regular 3-point hitch. So the way the way I hook it up, you know, I just pull that out, raise my arm up in here, put the pin through it. So leave that out. So I'm thinking if you got quick attach, it may come up in here. You can use this. I've got to take it out to be able to use it with a regular third arm. I got to remove this. So let's do that. When I took this bolt loose, when I loosened it up, this spread apart more than what I would like for it to. So that's why I moved it down to this bottom hole, so I could tighten it back up and pull that back together. These things shake and vibrate like you wouldn't believe if you've never used one, you know, especially if the ground's hard. So any kind of extra support or anything you can do always works out to your advantage. I'm gonna like this tiller. I've already noticed some stuff. I mean, look at that bolt. That's a good heavy bolt. Locking nut. This is the kind of stuff that vibrates loose and falls out. You know, and you look back and your tiller's just kind of dangling back there and you got to get out there. Well, I had a bolt fall out, you know. But that kind of stuff right there is, you got to just, these things are like old Harley Davidsons. You got to just grab a handful of wrenches every once in a while and tighten everything back up. That's not a locking nut. It's got a locking washer on it though. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff. I can already tell this tiller's put together better than the last one I owned. I owned a Taylor Pittsburgh, and this is the LMC Ag. I can already tell it's put together a little bit better. The Taylor Pittsburgh I had, it has some supports that these bolts right here, which this is just an inspection cover, it has some support that come down from up here and come down and was bolted to them two bolts right there, and I actually sheared the head of them bolts off just because of all the vibration on that Taylor Pittsburgh. This one, they're not borrowing this for support. This is just an inspection cover. So I like that. And I got ready to check something a while ago. I'm going to show you what I found. And this is, I like this. I was going to look and see how just see if I could see any gear oil in this gearbox. And I want you to look there. That's grease. Instead of gear oil, they're using grease in the gearbox. I doubt you can see down in there, but see a little bit down in there. But and there's some lines on that dipstick on down toward the bottom, and it's got a dipstick. So even if you wanted to use gear oil, you got a dipstick. But if you've never used grease in your gearboxes instead of gear oil, you need to try it. I didn't know this was gonna come this way, but I've done that before. I've got my bush hog. I hadn't showed you guys, but my bush hog, I've got a Kodiak bush hog, and they ain't none special. They're just kind of a medium duty bush hog. But our local co-op sells these bush hogs, so I've had a couple of them. I got ready to change gear oil in the gearbox one day. And guys at co-op said, well, if you bought it here, it don't have gear oil in the gearbox, it's got grease. I said, you're kidding me. I never heard of that before. They said, yeah. And since then, I've learned that if you got a gearbox that's leaking a little bit, you have trouble, you know, leaking pretty bad, leaking your gear oil out, you can replace the gear oil with grease, and you won't have no more leaks. So, and this one's got a dipstick, so you can actually check it, see how much is in there. So I like that. So I'm gonna check the gearbox on the side here, and we getting this thing ready to go. I got 2 jobs I gotta do now with it, so it's figuring to earn its money. Now it looks like they have gear oil in there, but I can't. But if you look down in there, that looks like grease. But that looks like gear oil. Well, I don't know. If it's grease, it's a different color grease than what's in the other gearbox. And I would imagine that you could run grease in this gearbox. Most time people run oil in there, but on this one. But if they're putting, you know, if they're going the extra step to put grease in the gearboxes rather than gear oil, it's already a better tiller than the last one I own. And like I said, just looking at it, some of you, just the way it's put together, I don't think I'm gonna have as much trouble with it, with stuff vibrating loose on it. The way you fill these things up with gear oil, you pour it in here. This is when it runs out this hole, it's full. So from here to here is a level of gear oil you're supposed to run in there. So you can pull these out sometimes and just see if oil runs out. We're not getting nothing running out. But looking in there, I know y'all can't see, I believe she's full of grease, ladies and gentlemen. I believe she's got grease. I guess I could call up to the John Deere place. I think they're still open. I think. I'll have to go look, see what time. No, well, no, they done closed for the day. But that's grease. Now I'm gonna have to verify, because I hate to take an inspection cover off, and then I'm gonna lose whatever's in there. But I don't know if it's grease. You might could keep most of it in there. But yeah, there's grease in the gearboxes on this thing from the factory, so I really like that. And I wanted to show y'all that pin. You know, just the way I wanted to move it down one notch. I'm gonna hook my third arm to it, and if I have trouble, I'll just take it out completely. But I don't think I'm gonna have no trouble. I believe I'll just be able to use that top hole. I have to get a smaller pin. It ain't a very big hole. But okay, so I'm fixing to put her on. Got a few more grease. We're gonna get it up in the air. We'll check this grease fit in here. Then I'm gonna figure out how I'm gonna mount that stand when I'm using it. So, alrighty. And this one right here. There's a bunch of leaves under there. That's what that crackling noise is. Now I'm gonna figure out what I'm gonna do with this stand. I have to raise it. I think. Well, the way that's made, I guess they just meant for you to raise it up a little bit. If it becomes a problem, I thought about turning it upside down. That may be what I do. Yeah. May not be gonna do either one. They didn't drill that hole quite perfect. It's turned a little bit yet. It ain't exactly straight. I don't know that I like that. Yeah, I don't think I do. I'm gonna raise it up a little bit, turn it upside down. we got it on there. I had to shorten the PTO shaft on this one. PTO shaft was a little bit long, so we had to cut it, make it fit. I was gonna try to use them chains, them safety chains for the guard, but I really don't have nowhere to hook them, and they're about useless anyway. Usually end up, you know, they usually break. This little piece here will break, and then it's no good anymore to you anyway. But I try to use them when I can. But used to, you gotta, you know, you have like a D-ring down here on the 3-point arms somewhere. That you, well, you know what? That's where you're supposed to hook it. So I do have a place to hook it. My other tractor, I had a D-ring down here that I hooked it to, and this one's up here. So, okay. Well, we got that part figured out. Got the PTO shaft shortened. Got the pin moved. This one, or the bolt moved up here. Moved it down here. So that worked for the third arm. That worked good. You can see that. Got it pretty well adjusted like I want it. Got the stand flipped upside down. I don't think that's how they really designed it for. I guess you can use it however you want to. That's what I'm going to do. I like it like that in case I want to till deep, it's not in the way. And I may end up, when I get out to the job site, I may end up just taking that off and putting it on the truck, because that'd end up out in the field somewhere. That'd end up buried somewhere. You'll never find it. And I like that little stand. Matter of fact, let's do that now. We'll just leave it here, because this is where I'm going to put this is where I'm going to park the tiller. So I'll just leave it here, because it ain't coming off the tractor until we get back. So we're not going to need it while we're gone. So that's the best way to do that. Just don't even take that with you. But anyway, they could have, the way they mounted that ring on there, that's pretty nice. They could have maybe put one up here, and you could have mounted it up here, but that's just something extra to lose. Because like I said, these things, when you get, ground's pretty soft right now, so we're not gonna have much trouble, but in the summertime, if the ground's hard, these things shake and vibrate, and everything on them comes loose sometimes. So, but you can see where it's at on the rear tires there. That's 7 foot on the back of that 5075E. So I'm out, you know, there's my, I'm gonna cover my wheel tracks good on that. You know, you can see where it's at there. So sticks out a little further on this side. Of course, you got the gearbox on this end, but that's gonna cover the wheel tracks real good on that 5075E. Gonna do a real good job, I believe. Hey, I want to show you something else. Let me get down here where I can see, if you can see. I don't know if you can see this. If you can see this. These things right here that they've welded on there. Right here and right here. I've run over a lot of barbed wire and stuff in the past, and vines. If you get in a place, if you're like cleaning up, we've cleaned up behind the bulldozer a few times, you know, and want to plant grass, and you try to, a tiller don't work that good, but you can. But if you get in a place like that where you're kind of reclaiming some ground, especially if there was old fences there, barbed wire fences and whatnot, it gets wrapped up right here. And I'm thinking that's why they've been baling twine. Just anything you run over, it's gonna get wrapped up right here somehow or another. It gets wrapped up around here too, you know, on down to, but it's easy to get off there. It's easy to get off these, and these, it's easy to get off those. But this one here, it gets wrapped up around there so tight you can't get it off. And then you get out here with a knife and cut it and cut and cut and cut. I spent many hours under here, under one of these, pulling out baling twine and barbed wire and you name it. And that thing is going to spin. Oh, sorry. That thing is going to spin. So if something gets under here that's going to get wrapped up around there, that thing's moving around trying to help kind of clean it off, you know. And I didn't notice that. Like I said, I kind of bought this thing sight unseen. I ordered it because this is This is what my dealer's carrying nowadays. And I couldn't get a Taylor Pittsburgh anymore, so I ordered this one. And this thing is made a lot better than a Taylor Pittsburgh. I really like that right there. That's a good feature. Let's see what the other side looks like. I hadn't even looked at it. Let's see. Oh, it's got the same thing. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I've dug a bunch of barbed wire and baling twine out from under here. You know, when reclaiming some ground and stuff. And we was using a tiller for, really for stuff that we shouldn't have been using a tiller for. But it does a real good job. And then you can go back in, plant some fescue, put some straw down stuff. And you know, if you've got a lot of people use a Harley rake. You know, that'd be like an attack, but it's, you know, you're gonna have the same trouble if you run over barbed wire or baling twine or anything like that, or vines. If you, roots is what it is. It's roots that you might grab a hold of a root. That thing's 100 foot long, and it'd get tangled up around your implement. But if you use a tiller, I haven't run a Harley rake, but if you use a tiller, a lot of times they cut them roots. If you're reclaiming ground, a tiller will cut them roots for you. And like I said, it's really, that's not what this implement is designed to do. This implement is designed to till gardens with, but we use it for whatever we can use it for to make a dollar, you know. And vines, man, vines get wrapped up around right here. Vines and barbed wire and baling twine. And I'm really gonna like them guides on there. I just noticed them earlier. I wanted to show them to y'all. She's running, sounds good. About got her ready to go though. Okay. So I gotta know on this inspection cover here. I'm curious. I'm gonna try to figure out if there's grease in here or gear oil. I'm 99% sure it's grease, but the dealer's not open and today's Sunday, so before I put this thing in the ground, I gotta make sure we got something in here. If it was gear oil, it would have run out by now. I believe we got grease. Or we don't have anything at all. That's what we got to be careful of. Let's see. I didn't want to take it all the way off, but it looks like we're going to have to. Okay, so there you go. You want to know what that looks like. We got a gasket here, cork gasket. I'll get that line back up. So they got grease in there. If you run grease instead of gear oil, you can do that. You can get away with it. what you do is you just check it every now and then, and if it needs some, you just add some. But to me, the advantages of running grease in your gearboxes over gear oil is you don't have to change it, you know, not as often anyway. If you run gear oil, you know, I like to drain it and fill it back up at least maybe a couple times a year, if nothing else at least once a year. That way I know what's in there, because you're going to aspirate moisture in a lot of these things, and it, you know, and if it sits outside, you can get rainwater. So all my gearboxes that have gear oil, I drain the gear oil out at least once a year. If it's an implement that I use a whole lot, like a bush hog, then I might do it twice a year. That's probably a little overkill, but it makes me feel better. Well, with grease, I don't have to do that. With grease, if I got grease in a gearbox, which I do on my bush hogs, so this is not the first implement that I've had done this way. If I've got grease in my gearbox, I feel a little more confident just hooking up to that implement and going to the field. I don't feel like, you know, well, the oil level may be too low, or, you know, I don't worry so much about stuff like that, because I know this grease, it don't leak out like your gear oil does. You know, like I said earlier, if you've got a gearbox that leaks a good bit, then you got to worry about it getting low. And if you've got one that's doing that, you can take the gear oil out, fill it up with grease, and that grease won't leak out. It won't leak out in the places that the gear oil leaks out. So I like that. I think that says something for, I don't know if the dealer, I don't know if my local John Deere dealer put the grease in there, or if it came from the factory from LMC with the grease already in the gearbox. I don't know who made this decision. I don't know if this was a manufacturer decision or a dealer decision. I don't know, because the dealer's not open, so I can't get in touch with them to ask them. So, but either way, this is what threw me off yesterday. There was two different color greases in here. So they had this kind of a clear looking grease, and then they had this darker looking grease. And I had some of the clear looking grease in that gearbox. And this gearbox, I thought I could see some grease, but it was a darker color. So maybe they run out of one tube and switched to another tube, or maybe that's just picked up some paint. It looks like maybe some primer in there. I don't know, but there's a darker color grease and then a lighter color grease. Like they might have used two different kinds, but I don't care. At least I had to know what was in there, so now I know. I got to get a grease rag and we'll put the cover back on. We got this thing on here ready to go now. I got to do a little work on the trailer, get it ready. I got some new tires I got to put on my trailer and get it ready to go and get loaded up, and we're gonna head out in the morning. So alrighty.